The summer is here. That means outdoor festivals, Comic-Cons, and the perfect weather for toy hunts. As the weather heats up and you're out there enjoying yourself, stay hydrated with our show's sponsor, Liquid IV. Liquid IV hydrates 2 times faster than water alone and 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. And it's easy to use. Just rip open a pouch, pour one of their delicious flavors into a water bottle, and shake it up. With sea berry, strawberry lemonade, Concord grape, lemon lime, pina colada, tropical punch, watermelon, guava, and more to choose from, there is a flavor for everyone. So whether you're on that long toy hunt, spending 10 hours on your feet walking your favorite Comic-Con, or getting your sweat on, stay hydrated and healthy with Liquid IV. Get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code AICPOD at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code AICPOD at liquidiv.com.
Are you ready, kids? Get your parents' permission, check your mailbox, and grab your shopping cart. It's time for the Adventures in Collecting podcast.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Dave. Welcome to Adventures in Collecting, where we talk toy news, culture, and hauls,
along with our journeys as collectors. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Adventures in Collecting.
Hi.
Dave, are you having a marvelous evening by any chance?
I would say it's somewhat legendary.
Is it now? I think I know why. I think I know why.
Eric, do me a favor. Please don't bury the lead.
Not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. This is, Dave, this is going to be legendary. For decades, this week's guest has been designing figures for the Marvel Legends line at Hasbro, hot on the heels of their announcement of the latest HasLab and largest Marvel Legends hero to date, Giant Man. We are thrilled to welcome Hasbro's real-life Marvel legend, Dwight Stahl, to the podcast. Dwight, welcome to Adventures in Collecting.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you guys having me out.
It's been a while since you've been on, and this is the first time you've been on solo. You've been on in one of those rapid fire roundtable fan stream follow up things. But this is the first time we've got you, so we've completed the set now. We've had the we're not allowed to say the big three anymore, I think, officially, but we've had Dwight, Ryan, and Dan on now. So
you had the android and the alien, and now you get the wizard.
There we go. Dig it. Well, before we hop into how you got your start in toys and your kind of travels through Hasbro, as this is a show about collecting, the first thing that we ask all of our guests, what are you currently collecting and what are some of your recent pickups?
My current collecting habits have been curbed a bit of late, but I am still very much into my Lego minifigures. I have a pretty massive figure collection in my basement, probably well over 1,000 of them. Wow. And they're just like my favorite little thing. They're just the look of that. To have something that has had such a maintained look over the years, while they've added embellishments and things to it, but when the primary DNA has been the same for so long, it's so fun to have something that I might have had as a kid, and to be able to buy things today that still look perfectly in scale, and it just builds that same collective kind of thing. And while I obviously didn't collect them as a child, I had a handful, and it's been a fun hobby. So just this past week, my daughters were kind enough to pick up 3 or 4 blind bags of the Marvel minis, and I was able to secure Agatha and Storm from their new series. So that's my most recent toy purchases.
Very cool. Yeah, there's something about seeing them all. I'm trying to remember Samuel Hatmaker. So Samuel Hatmaker, he was one of the contestants on, I think it was the first season of of Lego Master. We follow him on Instagram. He had like a display that, one of those ones that's like, it almost looks like a curio, like all the individual like cubes lined up on his wall, and like seeing them all together.
Those are cool.
It actually is really, to your point, like it's fun how kind of uniform but different they are. So like it is really cool to see all the minifigs together.
Yeah, I built a bunch of bleachers for all of mine because the problem with a figure that's so small, it's like, how do you display them and get credit for all of them? And for a long time, I just had them on plates, but the ones in the back got lost. So after many years of just kind of looking at the problem, I decided to buy buckets of bricks and I built a bleacher system. So they're all on elevated tiers. So everybody in the back still gets just as much screen time as the front rows, which is, big waste of time, but it was a fun project to undertake.
Stadium seating for your minifig.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
Yeah,
perfect.
Now, do you also do like the big like sets and projects, or is it just the minifigs?
I used to. If something catches my eye, I'll go out and grab it. I've been eyeballing the RMS Titanic for the last year and a half, but I'm also trying not to actively work on a divorce. So I'm weighing the purchase of said ship versus the happiness of said wife. And the wife is definitely winning out on that one.
Yeah, I feel you on that front. I feel you.
See, I have the significant other where we enable each other. So like, all right, I got you the Ghostbusters Firehouse. She wound up getting me like Old Trafford. So like,
there you go.
Or the 89 Batmobile. Like and I know she wants the Batman Returns one, and we get each other the minifigures and try to collect them all together. So she's like, just like, okay, whatever you want to get.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't care about cars really at all. Yet the last two large Lego set purchases that I bought were Ecto 1 and the 89 Batmobile. So those two I have in the basement and I love them. The problem for me is outside of I think the reason why I'm still sticking with my Lego minifigures is hey guys, even I don't like the prices of things. While I don't like that they've crept up to $5 a piece, it's still a manageable thing that I can, grin and bear the purchase of. But outside of those, my passions are so expensive. I have to be very, very select. Like I said, I'm talking about like almost a $700 the Titanic. I love myself those Polystone Sideshow statues. I've got a collection of WWE belts, and I've been eyeballing the AEW championship to add to that. So when the things that I like go from $5 minifigures to multiple $100 things, I have to be very cautious and selective as to what I want to waste my money on, because I have a child in college and another one on the way, and life.
Yep. Kids, man. Kids.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that there's a fellow Lego fanatic among us. Another one to commiserate with over space and display space. But
Absolutely.
Yeah. So pivoting into kind of your story here, Dwight, how did you get into toy design, and what led you to your career with Hasbro?
Okay. I always loved action figures when I was a kid. I played with action figures probably longer than most of my friends did. They were jumping off into sports and RC type cars and stuff, but I still just loved playing with my G.I. Joe figures and things like that. I remember the last two I bought were the Crimson Guard and Snow Serpent from the G.I. Joe line. And I had pretty much outgrown playing with toys. I think that was 87. I had pretty much outgrown playing with them at that time, but they were so cool I had to have them, so I bought them anyways. Then when, you eventually put your toys away, I hadn't thought about them forever. And I end up getting into industrial design at the University of Cincinnati. And with that program, it's a program that has the co-op to it, which is once you get into that level of school, which I think it was sophomore year, junior year, something like that, you go to school for a quarter and then you have to get a job at a professional place. And I had a couple jobs, at different like graphics firms and doing bottle design and light design and stuff like that. And that was fine. But then I was lucky enough to land a co-op at Kenner, which was one of the companies that Hasbro owned in Cincinnati. And I just kind of got my foot in the door there, working on starting lineups and G.I. Joe 12-inch figures. So it just kind of re-sparked that love for toys that I hadn't, thought about for, 10 years or so. And I started picking up a lot of McFarlane figures at the time. They were, just killing it with their Spawn figures and their comic figures like Dark Child or that was more, I think, right? Yeah, I think so. So, picking up all those beautifully sculpted things, and it just kind of re-sparked that love for toys. And I just never left. Once I graduated, I reached out to some of my friends who had made the transfer to Hasbro in Rhode Island. And I said, hey, I need one more co-op to finish off my collegiate career. Do you guys mind bringing me up to do that? And they did. And I just never left. I was hired as a temp when my co-op expired. And then the temp fell into a full-time gig on BTR, which was one of our earlier versions of a brick system like Lego. And from that, I just kind of bounced around from a few different brands over the years, from G.I. Joe, Transformers, Star Wars, and eventually when the Marvel license came to Hasbro, they tapped me to join that team. And I've been there ever since, back since 2006.
As someone who's been long tenured on Marvel Legends, you mentioned back since 2006, what are some of your favorite designs?
I love the version 2 Juggernaut that we did. The redesign and shaping of the helmet kind of completed that Jim Lee era kind of look to him, and he kind of had a little bit more of that Capcom-y feel, which I absolutely was a massive fan of. So that version of Juggernaut was absolutely amazing. I love some of the newer things we've done, like the Spider-Verse figures that are done in that more animated style. The Miguel Spider-Man 2099 in particular, he's got that awesome, really super heroic V shape and size to him. So that was kind of fun. When you can do things that are a little bit different out of the norm, Spiral that we did most recently, the original one was a lot of fun to do, but the challenge of the look of a female form with 6 arms and to get all of that functional material to shove into a torso and make it playable and look really, really amazing was a really fun challenge. And I think the kind of aesthetics of some of those odd things are always kind of a different treat to try to tackle.
Now you mentioned I love that you mentioned the kind of Capcom essence of Juggernaut, because you guys previously in a different scale, when the Marvel figures were still in 3.75, you had some of those Capcom 2-packs, and those were some of the coolest 2-packs ever. Every now and then I still see one kind of like show up at like a toy show or and I loved those designs too. I mean, that's like, honestly, as much as I read comics as a kid and still do today, there were I was introduced to a lot of characters through those games, through both Marvel versus Street Fighter and Marvel versus Capcom. Both of those series introduced me to a ton of characters that I was unfamiliar with.
Oh yeah. Even me at that time, they were, when you were playing when Shuma Gorath came out for the first time, and I'm like, what is this thing? I don't know, but it was so weird. The way it would walk on its tentacles, and the moves were just so crazy and varied. It was a same thing. It was fun to check out these things that from pieces of Marvel lore that I had never ever opened or cracked a comic for, and kind of see that there's this bigger, broader, more insanely wonderful universe to learn so much more about.
And kind of speaking of that insane universe, there are so many different characters. An absolute ocean of characters out there, and there have been characters that you guys have tackled, kind of several times now. You brought up a great example in Spiral. Have there been designs, specific designs over the years that haven't worked out, and have you had the opportunity to kind of go back and revisit some of those that like really stick in your head as ones that's like, I wish we could have done this at the time, but the technology or budget, whatever it was, have you had a chance to kind of revisit those?
Sometimes, yeah, and I still got a handful that I'd like to get to. For instance, I guess a good example is as a jumping off point would be something like Shocker. The first time we did him, he's a lower tier character, right? We used our old Bucky Cap body as the base for it. Like we do with many of our figures, we have the base clean systems that we can use for different designs to allow us to make more figures for you guys throughout the calendar year by using a very thoughtful existing tooling library. So we had made that Shocker, and he had like new knee pads and elbow pads and forearms, I think, and probably a head. But the figure itself was basically just what you already have. And then just a couple years ago, we got to revisit that character, and we wanted to do it from scratch because the quilting pattern of his costume was so unique to that character. It was really fun to revisit him and give him a his just desserts the way he should have been. I hope to actually be able to revisit him at some point now that he exists and I don't have to spend the money on the tooling. I'd love to go back and throw more deco on him and get all of that, all those recessed lines painted out and bring him back out for like a super version. But Spiral was a good example of, I really enjoyed the first one we did, but she definitely could use an upgrade. And I think the next one that I want to do the most that I've been thinking about for a long time is Green Goblin, like classic Green Goblin. Because he's also been done just using existing parts and such an iconic character. Arguably Spider-Man's greatest villain, definitely top one or two, depending on how you want to swing there. Definitely deserves a all unique new body sculpt and maybe something more premium with the glider itself to have some thrusters or whatnot to it. So that's definitely one that's on my short list of characters that when the opportunity arrives, I want to revisit and give you guys a all new, hopefully totally badass Green Goblin.
Yeah, that Shocker one too is something that I really appreciated. Instead of having the swappable hands, the like full swappable gauntlets on him. Like I thought that was a really cool add and something that I kind of something new that you guys had never really done before on a figure. And I thought it kept the lines nice and clean on his hands, and you didn't have like break up at the wrists with the gauntlets. It was a really cool touch to that figure.
Thanks. Yeah, we never like to just think that what we've done today is good enough. I think that's one of the hallmarks of the Legends team, and the challenge is you don't always have figures that are 100% like what you had in the past. So if there's something that you love from the past, that's wonderful. But we're always looking to what's that next thing that we can incorporate into our figures to improve them. The photo reel that we've been doing on the faces that we now moved over onto the classic figures, has really brought those heads to life in a new way that for a while we were like, I don't know if I want to do this technology there because it's going to make them look so different than what you already have in your collection. But the more we thought about it, we're like, well, let's test it and see what it even looks like. Because we knew what it would look like when you're trying to do someone from the MCU. But, we didn't know how it would look to translate classics. And, you guys can have a counter opinion if you so choose. And that's 100% fine. But we thought that it looked so good that we were so happy we made the jump. Same thing with like the pinless technology on the arms and legs where we can, to do those types of updates. And we got a few more of them in the works for things that you guys haven't seen yet that hopefully when we get to announce them, you guys will appreciate those kind of improvements as well.
Yeah, the photo reel is like you said is it's fascinating, right? Because I'm very open with the fact that the majority of my collection, I kind of focus on MCU and Spider-Man the animated series. Like those are like my two places of focus for Marvel Legends. So obviously, I was seeing the benefit of that face printing, like from Jump Street. As soon as you guys
Yeah.
started using it, it's like, wow, like this is, and it just keeps getting better and better and better and better.
Mhm.
Like I'm looking at my little villain shelf right now, and like I have like a little mini Jeff Goldblum and a little mini J.K. Simmons, and it's just so on and so forth. Like each figure, they just Benicio del Toro, like they look exactly like little versions of their their real life flesh and blood characters. So when you guys started saying on the live streams that you were going to be using it for the photoreal tech for comics, I was like, how does that work? Like, because you don't get a 3D scan of a 2D panel.
Right.
So like how do you decide, like, I don't even know how to word this question. How do you decide where that modeling kind of comes from?
It comes from the brilliance of our extended team. Tony was our painter who worked with us for many years, making many of those figures that you're referencing, and he is leveled up, so to speak. And he doesn't do a whole lot of painting for us anymore. Every once in a while, I get a chance for him to come back and work on something special if I really, really beg and plead. But his immense talent he was able to imbue into his replacements. And Kristen is our new model artist who runs Marvel, and she is she's a master, and the way she can apply those files for the faces is, bar none, some of the best applications I've ever seen on this scale for this price in particular. And she deserves a lot of the credit for how that final look, comes together. That's the part of the magic of the Marvel team is we have so many there's a lot of incredibly talented people at Hasbro. Stop. But the people we have on the Marvel team, not only are they incredibly talented, but they have such passion for these projects and what they do. And if you have that extra something special, that those undefinable things, it just makes the work so much above and beyond. And I think that shows on some of those types of little extra bits of labor of love that the team puts into it. And that's one great example of that extra, passion really coming out into that final toy form for all of you, awesome fans to collect and add to your shelves.
So is it just more of like a question? I guess it's more of like a question of like leveling up, right? Because you're, I guess the answer to what does this look like in 3D is like, this is what it looks like. And it's what comes out of the package. Because, if it's something for decades, near 100 years of just like, hey, this is stuff that is you've only looked at flat forever in minimal colors and all that. So like, I guess, does that add to the challenge? Because you're almost like creating this, like you're creating the textures, you're like, in a way.
Yeah, I would say it definitely does. Some of the challenges are trying to find out what the backsides of some of these things look like too. When you're using different artists from 80 years ago to today, they brand Bibles weren't created for every character, right? From every artist's interpretation of the character designs. So sometimes you get something that's really hot or special, or you want to revisit, and it's a bloody nightmare to go through, piles of comic ref. I will say the Marvel Unlimited app helps a lot with you having a source to go through so much of it. That's a wonderful tool. But even that is not, complete, right? So to try to find some of those things it can be a real challenge, especially when you want to make this thing fully realized, not just from the front, but as a fully fleshed out 3D thing.
You mean Jack Kirby didn't draw turnarounds of every character he ever drew? How rude of him! How rude!
Slacker.
So Giant Man. Let's get into Giant Man. Giant Man has the opportunity to now, finally come to life in his real form, right? Is in true to scale, right? An actual Giant Man in 1/12 scale. What led to the decision to go with Giant Man as the latest HasLab?
A big part of it was the anniversary year we're living in. Knowing that we had this big anniversary program for the fall with all of those amazing items that are out there now, the Hulk and Banner, the super articulated Black Widow, Hawkeye and Sky Cycle, et cetera, et cetera. We were like, well, let's keep this Avengers train rolling, and what better way to zigzag a little bit and to give you something that can go one-on-one, toe-to-toe with a Sentinel or a Galactus that you may already have in your collection, and that would be to go for the biggest hero we've done to this point, which is a 24-inch Giant Man. Those kind of things compiled with, I know that there's a lot of people who are like, I'm very happy with the Toy Biz one I have, the Build-A-Figure from the end of their run, and that's wonderful. If you're lucky enough to have completed that figure, that awesome figure for the time and when it was created, that's cool. I'm very happy for you. But that was, over 10, 12, I don't know how many, it's been a while. It's been a long while. It's been a generation since that was made.
Yeah.
And it's like, and there's so many more collectors out there now today, or fans even of the character, as he's made appearances in the MCU, and just, it's time to try to do something that's, to get that character out there on a meaningful, massive scale, for the next generation. And if you want to support it, awesome. Please jump on board and come along with us for another fun, amazing ride. But, if you guys are happy with one you already have, by all means, that's 100% okay as well.
Yeah. And I mean, he was, like you said, it was towards the end of the run. So, I mean, he was tough to build back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he commands quite a penny on the aftermarket.
Yeah.
These days too. Yeah, it's but yeah, I mean, it's a world of difference though. You're looking at a 24-inch figure as opposed to a 12-inch one, right? I mean, like you said, it's he's meant to go toe to toe with some of those previous centerpieces that you guys have put out.
Absolutely.
So, what have been some of the challenges with designing Giant Man? Adding tiers, but keeping them at a very accessible price.
That was a big part. Before you even talk about Giant Man itself, is what did this thing offer? What were we going to do with him? And trying to learn from previous campaigns, what worked and what didn't, all goes into it. So we kind of wanted to stay clear of the 6-inch figures this time. They were very polarizing in honestly all of the campaigns we've done. Having characters like Bastion, who you had never had in the Sentinel, having cancer like Morg in Frankie Ray, and with Galactus, and then having characters like the Goblin Queen and Mephisto in part of the Hell Charger. We saw really interesting opinions online. Some people were super excited to have the opportunity to get those characters. Other people were upset about, holding hostage those types of characters in a big campaign. And we're like, okay, well, let's not do that this time. Let's just focus on making Giant Man himself the centerpiece. Let's get that price down, and give them just this big, massive 24-inch awesome figure without any of that other stuff that has so many polarizing opinions. I know, we've been reading all the boards. People are like, oh, Wasp and Hank should have been included in here. And you're like, okay, cool. We could have done that, but that would have made the campaign $250, and for some people that's perfectly fine. Right. But we wanted to, once again, money's tight now, it's not this, the economy's doing, but it's not, we're not all like laughing and rolling in Scrooge McDuck money. So, we wanted to make sure we had that thing at a price point that was as accessible to as many people as possible. So that's kind of where we focused on the tiers, with some extra little bits and pieces that we could throw in there to have a little bit of fun, to have people have the ability to make other variations of him, just because that's kind of something we've done with all of our HasLab campaigns. And it's, for people who are the ridiculous, awesome super fans who are going to buy more of these things. Now you can have a good versus evil out of the box with, the zombie tier and the scroll tier. Beyond that, challenges for the actual item itself was the V harness, was getting that designed so it worked, functioned properly. Typically, it would have been attached to the belt, but because of the size of this figure, that wouldn't have looked good, and the belt would have ridden up when you're trying to articulate this thing, because the articulation on him is really, really, it's super articulated level articulation on a 24-inch figure. The only pieces that aren't there are the forearm and calf breaks because of the design of the scalloped boots and gloves. But, it has everything else, including toes and butterflies for the first time, as well as, ridiculously articulated fingers, and a gorgeous, when we talked earlier, we're always trying to make those new things. What else can we do that we've never done before? The new eyes on this figure are spectacular. They're clear, and they're painted from the backside. So the best example that I can call out is like doll eyes that you might have seen, on your sisters or your dolls you had when you were a young boy or girl. And that kind of level of realism on this eye is really going to take a figure of of that size to the next level, so that when you look at him, it doesn't look like it's a painted piece of plastic. I look at Fin Fang Foom on my shelf and I'm like, I hope that I get to do something like that with him at some point in the future, because these new little evolutionary steps in the in toy making allow us to do new great things every time. And those were some of the challenges, as well as, I guess, the last one probably would have been just modernizing a classic design. How do you take a design, maintain what it was in the comics all those years ago, but make it look like it's believable that it would exist in your Legends collection of today? And that's applying all the textures and the detailing and the logos and the zippers and all of those extra little things that, you don't necessarily think about. But, if a figure is going to be 2 feet tall, you're going to be looking at this thing in a way different than you would a 6-inch action figure. So, let's make sure that everything is thought about and really put in there, so that the, all the attention to detail and love that, we all have for the figure really comes out at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see, like, now having seen a Sentinel in person, having seen Galactus in person, like looking at the model, both the on your live stream and and Ryan had it at D23, and the pictures that were coming in from there, it almost looks like a giant Vulcan body. Like, it has like all of those same, like, articulation points and cuts and everything, and it's just like, it looks like this thing's I can't wait until we see further along and start to see this thing really start to move, and it's very impressive. It's very, very impressive.
Thanks. Yeah, we got a gray model in just this past week. So when I have a moment to breathe, I plan to take a lot of pictures of that thing, doing all that type of stuff, posing it out really awesome to get the pulse to post, or or throw up on an Instagram for you guys to check out, because that's part of the fun for me, is just being able to take a moment to geek out and try to just enjoy the process in the middle of it, instead of waiting for it to be over and just running on to the next project. I had a blast with the Engine of Vengeance last year, just taking that thing out to a parking lot in a baseball diamond, in the evening during my kids' soccer practice, and just laying around in the dirt and in the gravel, and having parents look at you like, what is wrong with this grown man, crawling around like an army soldier out in the middle of nowhere, taking pictures of a glowing car. Yeah, you look kind of like a moron, but I've been called worse by better people, so I can deal with that.
Hey, but you know what? At the end of the day, you were the only person that got to lay on your belly in the middle of a field and play guys with the Engine of Vengeance. So
That's a sad fact there, Eric. That's a sad fact.
It's a sad fact, but it's something that you get to keep forever, is you got to do that. You got
That's
to
true.
do that.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
O'Reilly! You've got questions? O'Reilly Auto Parts has answers. Need a pro you can trust? We've got that too. No matter what you need, our professional parts people have the training and expertise to help you do things right. Deep automotive knowledge. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
This segment is brought to you by our friends at Chubsy Wubsy Toys. A traditional mom-and-pop toy store in Little Falls, New Jersey, Chubsy Wubsy Toys brings you the best new toys from the brands you love without the hassle of pounding the pavement searching for them at larger retail stores. Visit them in person at their brand new home at 101 Newark Pompton Turnpike, Suite 1 in Little Falls, New Jersey, or online at chubsywubsy.com. That's CHUBZYWUBZZY.com. And tell them Adventures in Collecting sent you.
Rewind and press play on your VHS collection with CGC. CGC is excited to announce our newest collectible vertical, CGC Home Video. As a division dedicated to authenticating and grading your VHS collection, our experts are ready to help you encapsulate your favorite video cassettes. Don't settle for static on the screen. Submit today at cgcgrading.com. That's cgcgrading.com.
Shopify helps you sell at every stage of your business. Like that, let's put it online and see what happens stage.
And the site is live.
That we opened a store and need a fast checkout stage.
Thanks. You're all set.
That count it up and ship it around the globe stage.
This one's going to Thailand.
And that, wait, did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Whatever your stage, businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 a month trial at shopify.com/listen.
And now, back to the show.
So you kind of alluded to the fact that from a campaign standpoint, that you learned from previous HasLab campaigns, and that kind of informed some of the decisions you made, in structuring the campaign for Giant Man. Was there anything from an engineering or design standpoint that you took away from the Sentinel and from Galactus that kind of helped or improved design techniques for Giant Man?
Absolutely, yeah. We look at all of the previous campaigns that we've done, as well as the partner ones that are our friends and G.I. Joe and Transformers and Ghostbusters, et cetera, have done, because there's such great learnings to be had from every one of these campaigns, because it's still relatively new, and there's still a lot of things we don't know. So, for instance, one thing that we haven't talked about yet, or at least I must not have made perfectly clear, is all of the joints on Giant Man, from the ankles, knees, hips, elbows, shoulders, are all going to be ratcheted similar to the Galactus figure. So they'll be, able to click into position and really hold those positions for a very, very long time without the fear of them getting weak or, not holding whatever pose you want. So taking learning from that, for the structure was key. The face plates for Galactus were just pop-in mouths, but these are going to feed inside of the mask. So we are working right now to make sure that the skin, which will be a PVC skin, which is the red mask, is rigid enough that, it won't tear or rip in play, but flexible enough that you can pop the head out of it, because what we did for Galactus was the inspiration, but it needs to be tweaked. And some of the early models we got in don't work. So we're like, okay, that's fine. We've got a year. Let's get this thing figured out. So we spent, the last few months kind of tweaking things. And every time we get a model in, we keep trying to test, try to find the failure points so that we can be aware of them and work through them, so that we can make sure that the final experience for all the fans who hopefully back this and hopefully when it gets funded, won't have any of the growing pains that we've had through the first 6 months of the campaign, which is a chunk that you guys don't even see because that's all even before the teaser launch dates.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and it's always cool to see. To your point, you mentioned that with these HasLabs, and we've been, we've chatted with other people from the Marvel team, from the Star Wars team, and we know kind of like HasLab exists kind of as its own business unit, with like its own like resources, right, to a certain degree. So it's interesting to see how the G.I. Joe team leverages things, and the Star Wars team leverages things, and now you guys, and like just kind of seeing how everyone does kind of have this collaborative, like, learn from each other spirit. It's a very cool
it's awesome.
It's a very cool process.
Yeah, I don't know if it's learning so much as getting pissed when they think of something that you didn't think of, and it just grows that little that really hard core in the center of your gut that you're just like, oh, I can't believe they came up with that first. So sure, learning. We'll go with learning.
Dwight, I don't know. People can't see on the camera, but it looks like you might have like a chip or something on your shoulder. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
That doesn't sound right.
But yeah, it is cool to see from the outside, and especially seeing pictures of all you guys from San Diego Comic-Con all getting put in the Cobra clutch, and knowing that there's a lot of like fun crossover.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got some great people that work on all the different brands, and getting a chance to be in a building that's you're so close to so much creative genius, and seeing what the young kids, I say young kids, because I'm getting to be the old man, but seeing what the next generation brings is really exciting too, and it's like when they come at you and they're hitting you with different questions on different perspectives that you haven't thought about, or when they're bringing different pieces of Marvel lore that was really important to them that I missed out on because of I was, at a different point in my life and I wasn't paying attention to those things. It's great because you bring all that stuff together, and that's how you get a really successful team, when you got a nice mix of, seasoned vets and passionate young designers and team members. You kind of, if you're not, the key is not being so stupid as to think you have all the answers yourself, and to know that together as a team we're going to succeed way better than any one person's opinion, which is key. But if you're willing to realize that you don't have all the answers, you got a really good potential at Hasbro to get most things right, or at least step forward on the right foot to lead to hopeful success.
So before we head into our typical Q&A section, Dave has prepared something a little bit special for this interview, because we know that there is some additional crossover, right, between our likes and your likes. So Dave, why don't you talk about this first question that you have here for Dwight?
I'm glad you mentioned team, because I'm gonna pull up our team here. So we know that, like us, you're a big soccer fan.
Yes.
So if you could field an 11-character Marvel lineup to put onto the pitch, who would it be, and what is your formation?
Okay. All right. Well, that's fun. If you're going, okay, all right. So I can give you that answer, but if you're going to build a team, you got to start with a coach, right?
Okay.
So if I'm going to throw a coach out there, someone who has the foresight and insight and ability to know what's going to happen out on that pitch, I'm going to take Charles Xavier as my coach.
Okay.
Fair.
And I'm going to build from, it's Marvel, so I'm going to go with an offensive-minded team. So I'm going to go with a 4-4-2, okay? But I'm going to start with defense and then work forward.
Okay.
My goalie would be the Blob.
Okay.
Because he's immovable, and he would block the entire goal or most of the goal anyways, making penalty shots impossible. And the ability to get a ball past him while he's not the most agile. I think his bulk would really, really serve well if Blob is in goal. Then my two defenders, one would be Quicksilver, so that he has the speed to negate any clever attacks coming at him. Now, mind you, this team would have to get along, and I'm sure Charles would be able to manage that. But my other defender would be Gravitron. So if he's able to, Gravitron's able to, manipulate, things coming at him, he can either slow down adversaries or adjust the ball's density and stuff to help keep things on track. Now, in my midfield, you got to have some magic users because you just don't know what's coming at you, and you got to be able to protect your boys and ladies from whatever's out there. So I got on my left and right mid, I got Doctor Strange and the Scarlet Witch. I think those two together can cover any outer threats that might mess with what's going on the pitch. Now, my center midfield, I have two, because first, to have a successful team, you have to have a field captain. You have to have someone that you can rally behind, that that person is going to take you home for the win. And that's where Captain America goes. One, he's a perfect physical specimen. And two, he is going to be the person out there that's like, I am going to lead by example. Come with me, and we're going to win this game. And then next to him, you got to have a defensive mid that is a stone wall for your opponents to break upon. And that's where Sentry would go. So he's got the power, and he's a little bit crazy. So you just never know when you might need that guy out there that can just go out there and get a yellow card if need be by taking somebody or taking someone down a level, right? All right. Strikers. Domino as my left wing, because a little bit of luck on your side is not going to be a bad thing. Now, to counter Domino on the left, I've got Ultron on the right, because he's never going to get tired, and his brain would be able to figure out all the trajectories and things that would be needed to have perfect passing and so on and so forth. You need some perfect specimens just to be able to run, and get shit done. So I got Power Princess as my center, one of my two centers. And this is a curveball for you, but technically it still counts. I have Lionel Messi as my other one, because I did my homework and I found that he was in Marvel Comics, did make some little snippets for him and other players for the FIFA 18 World Cup. So technically, I think I'm still covered there. And if you have the opportunity to put Leo on the pitch, why wouldn't you do that?
So
That's fair.
So Messi Marvel Legends when?
Oh man, from your mouth to the goodness of the universes, I would absolutely lose my mind to get a chance to make that action figure.
Oh my god! So we had put together.
We started
a team.
at a 4-4-2.
Yeah, that's where we started. And Dave is gonna walk us through the Adventures in Collecting team. I am going to say before we announce our team, I'm pretty sure we're boned, but I would like to continue forward with what we had picked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we went 4-3-2-1. So Coach Nick Fury, because he's got the answers.
I like that.
And I feel like we've got a bit of a more, I'll say, defensive squad.
He's a good motivator, Nick. He's
Fury. A good motivator. He knows defense, right? As the head of Shield. So our back line is so we went with Robbie Reyes and Mark Spector on the sides, on the outsides as your backs. Just basically, like penance stare and the ability to basically those mystical powers in order to prevent prevent anybody coming up the wings. And you need two of the biggest bodies you can get and clogging up the middle. So of course you have Hulk and Thing. How are you going to get through a literal brick wall?
That's a pretty terrifying defensive center. Yes.
Yeah, and now if you happen to, similar to the Blob stopping everything in sight, I think Reed Richards would be able to also do that.
I like that. It's same benefits with added agility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, the midfield. This is where it gets a little interesting because I like that D mid strategy too, but I feel like similar ideas, but he's someone who's a bit more, I'll say, generous. He's not going to be someone who's going to kind of go up the field and try to score himself. He's going to want to distribute and kind of watch both ends, and that's where Steve Rogers fits in with us as that like 6. Now, on the wing, you want two people who are veritable sharpshooters to get crosses in, right? So who better than Black Widow and Kate Bishop?
I like that.
To get those crosses in. Pinpoint accuracy. So then we've got our front two, and it's kind of like that whole like two people up front that could score and play off of the center forward, but still be able to do well themselves. Speed, agility, Peter Parker, and T'Challa.
I like that.
And, it's like you have Messi. We needed that Zlatan. And who is going to be Zlatan? That Zlatan, Messi type of player. Of course, Tony Stark.
I like that. I think the only heel you have I think the only foil you didn't think about is how clumsy Peter Parker is.
That's true.
So,
well, it depends which version of
he could be either there like as you're like he's going to be your saving grace, or what the bleep just happened, Peter?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you take your eye off the ball? The kid in the audience who was dropping his ice cream cone, he could have bought another one. You didn't need to go over there and save the ice cream cone for that kid.
I'm a Red Bulls fan, so this is I'm just used to that. So I needed part of it in the squad.
Yeah, we like to we welcome the abuse. We're just, I would like to say though it is not the Tom Holland version, the spoiler secret breaker. Like it's not that version of Peter Parker. Like we're going like classic Peter Parker. So like a little less or a little more reliable, a little more consistent Peter Parker. Like
I want to see this happening. I think the only thing we need to come up with is what's our multiversal coin toss for Steve Rogers, right? So we can each have that Steve out there. I think that looks like that's the only hiccup that we have to settle, and then we can make this thing happen.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Or it's just like you flip the coin and one of you gets Bucky and the other one gets Cap. Like that's
there you go.
Yeah. And then either way you get a Cap, but that's awesome. So I would,
or Sam,
that's right, or Sam.
I like True. This. I think we have some win-win scenarios here.
Yeah, and I
am so happy with how this worked out. By the way,
this was good. That was a good question, Dave.
Thank you.
I like that too. That was a fun one.
So. The other part of the crossover, so we also know that you're a big wrestling fan, and Marvel has actually, just recently we got these figures. Actually, last year we had a friend of the pod was in Mexico and happened to find these AAA Marvel Lucha Libre figures, which are now available for pre-order in the U.S. for the first time on Entertainment Earth. So if you did not have a friend in Mexico that was able to find these for you, they're really awesome figures. But which characters from the Marvel universe would you want to see in a squared circle?
Okay, so I got something that's not normally what you would want to see, because normally two big men going at it doesn't work normally, but with the Marvel caveat, which brings that extra agility and stuff to those big guys. I would like to see from my ultimate throwdown, Juggernaut versus Hulk in a squared circle.
Just a big old meat match.
Just a big old meat match. So
Every now and
that's
again, Goldberg and Brock Lesnar works, and you
There
don't
you
know
go.
why.
Yes. Yes. So that would be my beef match. And then my more style, a little bit more flair, a little bit more could play off of each other. I went with a wrestler ish from the Marvel universe in Champion of the Universe.
Okay.
And have him go against Spider-Man. So
Okay.
someone who's, got the strength to hold up against, a giant titan of that size, but all of the agility and amazing, stuff. And Spidey's got a little bit of a, background in wrestling as well. So I think Champion of the Universe versus Spider-Man for the intergalactic championship would be pretty impressive.
So I did 2 matches as well. I did a men's match and a women's match.
Nice.
So my men's match is Batroc the Leaper versus Spider-Man for the very same reason. I want that work rate match. I want, I want these guys, I want to see movement. I want to see, tope suicidas. And that's, you're going to get that out of the two of these guys. Like you're going to get that match. That's, it's going to be wild. And
which was funny with GSP as Batroc in the MCU.
It's true. It's true. I didn't even think about that when I was coming up with that answer earlier today. But yeah, that would be fun. And then my women's match would have to be Yelena versus Natasha. You've got it's like the best of the best. No real superpowers, right? You just have two people that are trained to literally kill people and get away with it, fighting each other in a ring. I just think the two of them, I have to imagine that Yelena's probably a submission specialist, so you're going to have a little bit of a clash of style there, but that's going to be my matchup for men's and women's.
I think you have to add a stipulation to that. I think that has to be a 60-minute Iron Woman match.
Yep. That would, could be,
because I don't think you can. I don't know if there's a better women's match than that. That's up there.
Yeah, I mean it's true. You would definitely need a stipulation for it. Falls count anywhere, something, so that way the two of them could really just go full tilt.
Yeah.
Dave, what about you? Do you have any matchups in mind?
All right, so I'm going to go with one that's specific to me. Let's get Robbie versus Danny Ketch. Robbie Reyes versus Danny Ketch versus Johnny Blaze.
Oh, a trip.
Let's just make it happen. Triple threat.
The promo package is definitely using Highway to Hell, right? It's definitely
the
lead up.
In Hell in a Cell.
Mm-hmm. You could do it that way. I mean, yeah. Now, if we were gonna get a women's match in there, I'm between two people. The one that I am for sure on is Scarlet Witch. But do I want Agatha Harkness or do I want Jubilee? I guess we could do another 3-way match. Although Jubilee isn't really a magician.
No, well, you can get magic in there though.
I can get magic in there, but I feel like it's different magic at that point.
A giant sword that you can conjure versus literally anything that Scarlet Witch wants to do.
Then again, I mean, even though Dazzler isn't it's just fun to have Dazzler in anything.
Dazzler versus Jubilee. There's your match.
Dazzler versus Jubilee. There we go.
Firework.
You have to hand out sunglasses to the entire crowd.
Yeah.
It's part rock concert, part part discotheque, part exploding barbed wire match.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50,000 blue blockers for the entire audience.
For the bombast and nothing more. Because I feel like the all magic could just get I feel like it would almost be a draw in a
Stop
way.
turning things into other things and fight.
Yeah.
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 I like the women's hook though, so I'm going to throw in a bonus pre-card match of She-Hulk versus Titania.
It's classic matchup. Classic matchup.
Yeah, nothing out of the norm there, but I would like to see that inside the ring.
Yeah, if provided they could keep it in the ring. That's
Yeah.
that would be the issue.
Yeah, you could tell I went full like 80s. What's my 80s WWF bombastic like card match there?
Well, I mean, Dazzler always had those Alundra Blaze, I should say, always had Dazzler vibes. So, yeah, I'm picking that up. Or Medusa. I always go with Alundra Blaze, but Medusa is probably the more famous name. So this takes us into our Q&A, Dwight. So,
all right.
We know that having access to you is a privilege, so we want to make sure that we get our listeners and our followers questions in here, along with some some fun curveballs. Dave, remind our listeners and our followers how do they submit questions for our interview episodes?
So, when you see that we announce a guest on Instagram, first off, make sure to follow us, hit that follow button, and then like the guest, and then add a comment or look at the story. There'll be a little block in there where you can type in a question. I was going to say type in an answer. No, that's for our guest to do. Verbally type in an answer. And then, you'll hear this podcast. You'll hear the result of your question on your favorite podcast source, but also on YouTube, where you could smash that subscribe button and hit the little bell for reminders that there's new content. And I think that's all the internet.
You were starting to get angry there at the end. Like, I kind of like the energy of this one. You're really you're ramped up. This is good.
I felt like I was like Greg Graffin. I'm like admonishing you from stage.
Well, if you could dial back the admonishment and start Dwight off with the first question, that would be great.
I would love to. At New Jersey Devs Fan on Instagram asks, did you ever imagine when you went into this career that you would become a public figure in the process? What did it take to get you out in front of the camera?
The first part of that is no. I did not expect that this is where I would be all these years later. But I will say that so much has evolved about the profession over the years that if you're willing to pick up the ball and run with it, there's a lot more things for you to do outside of what your typical 9-to-5 would be. In the past we had, you would present on the contours or senior management reviews. And then obviously the pandemic changed everything where, how can we reach and interact with our fans, of the product? And we had to look at things differently. And one of the things that was that popped up and became so popular were the Teams calls and the Zoom calls and being able to talk like we're doing right now and get a chance to have these interactions with people who love the same stuff you do, and I strongly believe in many instances, if you love what you do and if you want it portrayed the way you want it portrayed, then you got to do it yourself, and if that takes you out of your comfort zone, sometimes that's, the only way to do it, I look at, I haven't gone back and watched, but I lived through them. And some of our early things were kind of painful trying to figure out how you talk. Cause I like this where I'm talking to you two gentlemen, but in some of those early ones, when you were talking to nothing, And they were like, "Oh yeah, we're just going to present stuff." And I'm like, "What? It's just not. I don't. It's just not how. It's not how life happens, and it's not like you know." You don't, you're not trained for that, and it was very awkward to be, hey man, check this out, it's gonna be freaking awesome, and you're like, I sound like a total piece of garbage spewing off catchphrases and lines, and I'm like, this is weird. It's like, because I love when I talk to people and you get to really feel what's going on and you get to feed off of them, the good and the bad, right? I mean, no, trust me, there's been plenty of bad about this evolution as well, when the nameless masses can say whatever they want and you can't respond to them. There's been a lot of evolution to these types of things. You definitely develop a thick skin, or you better, if you want to survive, because peoples out there can be horrible from time to time. If you've ever noticed that, it's a small little piece of the internet.
We leave the comment section off when we watch the live streams. We just turn that off.
It's on my TV, so I don't see that.
Just turn that off.
Yeah. So I mean, it's fun though. I mean, I think like I said, I think it translates to any profession about whatever it is you do. It's you got to be willing to evolve with the times or get left behind, and that's all part of it. You just got to figure out how to roll with it, and you got to figure out who you are, and you got to be honest. The fans know more about this stuff than we do, and I've been doing this for a long time, but there's people out there that know every dark corner of Marvel universe. They know stuff that I, won't know for 20 more years if I study every day. And, you got to be honest. You got to talk from the heart. You got to have passion about it. But if you have those things, and if you can take the heat, because even if you think you're doing the right thing, you're going to get a lot of, slack. So you got to, be like a duck. You got to let that shit just roll off your back. And if you can do that, you'll be fine. But it's definitely been an interesting evolution over the past few years to this new world.
The guy who puts Gravitron on his back four in a starting 11 is talking about not knowing deep cuts in Marvel. Jeez. Well, next question comes from mutual friend Emily Bader from Hasbro, and she asks, how do you make sure all of the figures in your office don't fall down and cause a giant avalanche? She's asking for a friend.
That's easy. I cheat. Are you kidding me? Cheat to win, baby. All those figures that you guys see in my office, all of them, at least one of their foot is glued to a plexi stand. Which I know the toy purists out there are screaming, you did what? That figure's worth blah, blah, blah. And you did what? That office is amazing. I absolutely love my office space, but it is a working archive. So every figure that's in there, me and my engineer can gather and look at it when we're trying to figure out what's next to do and how to, what we have in our library, what do we need, what can we use, what can we pull. So that's why, we try to keep everything in there to have as an archive. So it is a working tool. And because of that, I've treated it as such. My collection at home, I take a little bit better, care of, because I would not want to do that to my toys. And I wouldn't recommend that necessarily to anybody, because while usually hot glue is pretty easy to remove, it's just kind of can be messy, but they're all glued to little clear stands so that if they fall over, it's much easier to put them back up, and they it creates that interlocking kind of system that kind of keeps everybody in place.
Yep. Very familiar with as long as you don't touch anybody, they're all keeping each other up.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Friend of the pod at Super Action Stuff asks, how do film date changes affect your release schedule and design planning? For instance, with the current industry strikes, do you have contingency plans in place should the 2024/2025 releases get pushed?
There's always something to contend with. Nothing's ever what is it? The best laid plans, right?
Yeah.
Always somehow manage to blow up in your faces, and I think that's pretty much just that's definitely toy development 101. You can have the most glorious thing laid out in front of you. You got this roadmap that you're like, oh, this is going to be killer, and then an actor gets injured on set, or a writer's strike, or
a global pandemic.
Yeah,
Or
a once in a generation global pandemic.
Yes. So, yeah, we don't develop like extra things to put into place, but Marvel in particular has more flexibility than many brands that are heavily entertainment driven, because we have such a deep well of comic and previous animation and even previous MCU things that we haven't yet tapped into. Like, there's still plenty of figures from phase 1, 2, and 3 that we haven't addressed. So, we have the ability to come up with a story and to pivot to some of those other things. And there could be some delays because of that. But we also have the ability to do pre-orders nowadays, which also can be nice. So even if you can't have the product on shelf when you might want it because of delays, you can still develop product and pre-sell it, in a similar type of window, as long as things aren't too crazy. But sometimes you just got to roll with the punches and do the best you can. But that's, yeah, and I'm sure next year will hit us with a whole new surprise of something else to contend with too.
Please, I hope not.
Yeah. I've not really enjoyed there's always something these days.
Yeah, and that goes beyond the toys thing. Like, we need a break, man. We just need a break.
Agreed.
All right, so the last question in our Q&A comes from, once again, mutual friend, and this time a fellow Marvel Legends team member, Ryan Ting, asks, what do you call a dense bread roll in the shape of a ring that is made by boiling dough and then baking it?
I'm not going to fall for this, that son of a... I'm going to say I call it delicious. That's what I call it. Absolutely delicious. Sometimes with blueberries, sometimes with cinnamon and sugar malted on top. Delicious. That's what I call it, you punk.
Oh, I don't know whether I want to ask you the context of this now or save it for when Ryan is standing next to you at New York Comic Con and you can maybe hurt him a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what the better ask is here.
I can't hurt anything anymore. If I want to have a throwdown, I need to convince whoever I'm going against to give me 15 minutes to stretch. That's the only way that I have a chance of a successful, defense of my title.
All right. So the real question there, though, is cream cheese or butter?
Oh, for me, it's butter. Right. I'm a big fan of doing a little bit of grape jelly on one half and a little bit of butter on the other half, toasting it up, putting it together. Ooh, choice.
That's my favorite. Like, I just was sick, or I am currently sick.
Yeah.
Like, thing to have, where it's just like either toast or an English muffin or the aforementioned bread ring.
You just become a 12-year-old again, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just want the Price is Right at noon and my bread roll with butter and jelly.
Rest in peace, Bob Barker.
Yeah, seriously, pour one out. Guy got as close to 100 as he could without going over.
I'm the rare Here's the thing with this. I'm the rare New Jersey native that prefers butter because A, it's easier to eat when you're driving. Because you always get cream cheese with a side of the bread ring. You do not get bread ring with a little bit of cream cheese on it. It's always too much, and if they toast it, then it goes everywhere. And then you have to wash your car like afterwards.
I'm gonna call it bread ring forever now, but not like a bread ring, just bread ring. Like,
bread
do you want bread ring toasted? I'd like a Taylor ham, egg, and cheese on bread ring, please.
I'm hopping on this wagon because I don't want to make anyone mad. I don't want to upset anybody.
Perfect. All right. Well,
bread ring. Like there you go.
There you go.
Bread ring.
That's a t-shirt.
Put that on bread ring. Whew, okay. Well, that wraps up our Q&A section and takes us to the last thing that we do with all of our guests before we let them leave, before we free them from our clutches. Dave, would you like to fulfill your role as this podcast's James Lipton and ask Dwight our final question?
Why, yes, I would. The final question that we ask all of our guests. What is your favorite and/or strangest piece in your collection? It can be one of each, or it can be both.
Okay. If I'm going to go with favorite, it's got to be something that I cherish enough to put around me that I see every day. I have one figure and one statue, if I'm allowed a little bit of a Leland's. So behind me, I have a sideshow statue of the Dark Lord Sauron. It's one of the few things that my lovely wife has allowed me to have on the main floor of the house. So I have that sitting above my television, and I absolutely love having him up here. And then in my mother's china hutch, God rest her soul, I took out all of her plates and I've put my things in there. So I'm sure she's not overly happy with me, but she knows I love her. I have different action figures in my championship belts in there. And in there, I have a Square Enix Judge Master Gabarinth action figure. It's just such a glorious piece of plastic that I had to just always have that to just appreciate and look at, because it's just so damn beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah.
What's your favorite belt?
I currently have 3, and I don't know if I could pick between them. I have the Winged Eagle, I have the Big Gold, and I have Austin Smoking Skull.
Okay.
So those are the 3 that I have today, and I'm really eyeballing the AEW one just to kind of complete the complete the collection. Hopefully, I can stop with just that last one. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Awesome. Yeah, I also, it's funny, I also have that one piece that was allowed to not, like, my collection literally lives in my office. You can see part of it behind me, but most of it's in front of me here. But I have one piece that's allowed in, like, our living room by our TV, and it's one of the Diamond Select premium statues. It's the 1/6 scale Boba Fett from Empire Strikes Back, where he's like walking on the freezing chamber steps. But we're a big Star Wars house as well, so I get a little leeway in that department. But yeah, that's the one piece. Like, it's the only thing in the living room that's it's like that, and then just, the normal, I'm doing heavy air quotes, the normal stuff that you'd find in a living room.
The we're not that weird people till you get to the office, or in my case, the basement.
Yeah. It's like,
we're looking for a house that will fully own our weirdness.
And it's a great time right now to be house hunting.
I know, it's my favorite thing. Just that adds to it, doesn't it?
The market's
just
perfect. It's just a perfect time to buy a house right now in September of 2023. Great time. Definitely a buyer's market. Well, Dwight,
you just made him so depressed. Dave's just like, yeah, this is not how I wanted this podcast to end up. Thanks for giving me that before I go to bed.
See, we talk about it all the time, though. That's the thing. It's literally like the butt of every joke.
I'm just gonna get this and make me feel better.
There you go.
Good.
Oh, the orange one.
Yeah, the blue one's over there too.
Well, Dwight, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us tonight. please tell our listeners where can they find you on social media, where can they find out about the HasLab, and where can they stay up to date with all of the goings on at Hasbro?
Awesome. Yeah. You can find me at Stall Dwight on Instagram. We have the HasLab campaign currently running over on the Hasbro Pulse. So if you are in the market for a 24-inch Giant Man, please come check that out and join us on this campaign. We're almost 50% there. We will be at New York Comic Con in a few weeks, so you can see it in person. And before that, we have PulseCon coming up this coming Friday.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll be sure to share links to all of those things in the show notes, so you guys can follow Dwight if you're not already following him, and definitely check out the HasLab and the Hasbro Pulse YouTube channel where you can watch. By the time this airs, you can watch the replay of PulseCon. So, Dwight, thank you again so much for joining us. Dave, why don't you send us home?
Excelsior.
Thank you, dear listener, for hanging out with us today. Subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen, and then tell your friends to do it. Thanks also to Joe Azari, the golden voice behind our intro. Our music is Game Boy Horror by the Zombie Dandies. Find more about them both in our show notes.
Follow us on social media at AIC_podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Stop by and say hi, show us your toy hauls, and share your toy stories. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode.
Don't try this at home. Void where prohibited and some assembly required. Each sold separately, not a flying toy. Consult a physician if your toy run exceeds more than 4 hours.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.
O'Reilly.
You've got questions? O'Reilly Auto Parts has answers. Need a pro you can trust? We've got that too. No matter what you need, our professional parts people have the training and expertise to help you do things right. Deep automotive knowledge. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
Oh, oh,